New York City has published a public service announcement with instructions on how to survive a nuclear strike in the city. Their advice seems fairly bad, like you're probably not going to survive, and the advice is kind of contradictory, but we'll get into that. I suppose considering the circumstances of what New York City is and how people live there, there's not much you can really do to survive a nuclear strike. I mean, people live in bachelor cubicle apartments, and there's no real protection. I suppose they could say something like, put your mattress against the window and then duck and cover, but I don't know what they can do. Really, to help you survive a nuclear strike in a city like Manhattan. But the question is, why? Why did New York put out a PSA on how to survive a nuclear strike? Are we really at risk of nuclear war? And I suppose the short answer is maybe. And no one really believes that nuclear war will happen. But with Russia advancing in Ukraine and NATO being all like, yo, we don't care, Ukraine is ours or whatever, the chances that there's a strike on the U.S., well, it's greater than 0%, I suppose. Now, look, we all have our normalcy bias. We all have our optimism bias. We don't want to believe that anything like this could happen because it's never happened. And people seem to believe that mutually assured destruction will stop Russia dead in its tracks. Except now we have Russia announcing the deployment of the Sarmat-2 intercontinental ballistic missile, or MIRV, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle with a maximum payload of around 50 megatons, which would just very much wipe out the eastern seaboard with a single ICBM. So let's break this down and talk about, should we actually fear this? Now, look, I know there's a lot of fear mongering. I can't tell you what will happen. I can only tell you what's being reported in the news and how I feel about it, and it's going to be up to you. The Daily Mail reports New York City releases PSA for a nuclear attack after Russian state media boasted Putin could wipe out the U.S. East Coast. Video says keep radioactive dust away from you. All right. So the video is actually kind of funny. It's very absurd, and their advice makes very little sense. I mean, I get it. But let me show you this from Yahoo News. From just this morning, director of Roscosmos, Rogozin posts picture of Sarmat nuclear missile. Again, says it will be serially produced. Oh, I'd like to show you the breakdown of nuclear weapons. I ought to be honest with you. I'm not super worried about the apocalypse or the nuclear war expansion or anything like that. I think the PSA is stupid and probably a bit fear-mongery, but I love talking about nuclear weapons. I did a segment for Discovery years and years ago where we talked about the true power of nuclear weapons, and it's just fascinating stuff, and I'll tell you why. The only experience or context people have for nuclear weapons, it typically comes from World War II. And people are like, little boy and fat man, these are the bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they're like, look how powerful those bombs are. Those bombs ain't nothing. Ain't nothing. I'll say it again, ain't nothing. The bombs we dropped were called gravity bombs. That means we have a plane, and when we drop it, and it goes kaboom. The yield on those was like 15 kilotons or 20 kilotons, I think, between the two of them. Kiloton. Okay, well, multiply that by about 1,000, and you get a megaton. 1,000. And now, you take a look at these MIRVs and the Sarmat-2 with 50 megaton capabilities. I will show you a map to break down the power. On average, the weapons we have today are around 1,000 to 1,025 times more powerful. 1,000 times more powerful. And probably more than that. We have this map, Nuke map. I love showing it. I'll show you what'll happen if they drop a bomb on, say, New York City or Washington, D.C. And I'm sorry. This PSA is insane. Because even a bomb from the 1970s or 60s would vaporize Manhattan. It's crazy stuff, man. Now, I will say, a lot of people don't understand that some of the nuclear bombs, people assume, they're not as strong as people might think. Like, if they used the bombs used in World War II, most of New York would be really fine, but Manhattan would still get crushed, at least from, like, the financial district or whatever. So here's the story. New York City has released a public service announcement for a nuclear attack, weeks after Russian state media claimed Putin could wipe out the East Coast. In the new clip released Monday, the city's emergency management department tells New Yorkers, so there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why. Just know that the big one has hit. Okay, so what do we do? A city spokesperson tells citizens, while the likelihood of a nuclear weapon incident occurring in New York City is very low, it is important New Yorkers know the steps to keep safe. I just want to point out, they don't really give you the steps to keep safe, to be honest. The 3 simple steps for New Yorkers to follow are get inside, and stay tuned. There is a reminder that staying in a car is not an option. Don't go outside until officials say it's safe. The PSA spokesperson continues, if you were outside after the blast, get clean immediately. Remove and bag all outer clothing to keep radioactive dust or ash away from your body. That is good advice. That is actually good, all right? People are encouraged to head to a basement if they have one. There is no mention of duck and cover in the video. They close the video by saying, all right, you've got this. What? In May 2020, Russian state media issued a chilling new nuclear threat to the U.S., boasting that Putin could wipe out the entire east and west coast with just 4 missiles. Not wrong. And this is just based on what we think we know. Why would Russia outright tell us what they could do? They would probably saber rattle. I mean, look, some people might be like, I have this powerful weapon. Don't come at me. But you'd also probably want to keep your more powerful capabilities a secret to prevent them from being, to block their usage, right? Russia coming out and saying we can do this, it tells the U.S. how to defend against it. And the U.S. probably can, but considering the dysfunctional behavior of the U.S. military as of right now, I'm not so sure. So here's some stills from the clip. It's really funny. They say, this woman's like, step 1, get inside, fast, get into a building and move away from windows. Then stay inside, shut doors and windows. Dave Landau last night pointed this out. He's like, wait, so they're saying to get away from the windows, but then go to the windows? That sounds like bad advice. It sounds like bad advice because it's contradictory. And yeah, here's my understanding. Okay, you definitely want to get inside. Somebody super chatted us a breakdown saying the basement actually isn't a good idea. This is where it gets interesting. They say where you want to be after the blast is mid-level because the radioactive dust is going to settle on the roof or start accumulating on the ground. So you want to be on the second floor of a third-story building, if you can, and you want to seal all the doors and windows. So tape them up, plastic all around them, put stuff at the bottom of the door because you don't want radioactive particles getting inside. Now, this I learned when I went to Fukushima for you Americans, and we wore these cloth suits, right? The reason is, what you're really concerned about is that on the ground is particles, that radioactive particles. And when you walk, it gets kicked up into the air and gets all over you. You breathe that stuff in. What people are really concerned about is radioactive iodine. I think it's iodine 131. I could be wrong. Iodine 131. When you eat it, when it gets in your body, it goes in your thyroid and then messes you up. So maybe it wasn't smart for me to go to Fukushima. I went there with Luke Rudkowski, and maybe we'll end up regretting it when we're in our 40s or 50s. The idea is that the younger you are, that the greater risk you are, because the more the cells divide, if there's damage to the DNA, it can there could be an error, and then you can have thyroid cancer and other problems. So that's what they say to do in the event of a nuclear strike. People seem to think what you're concerned about is gamma wave radiation, and that's like... People think radiation is like the beams being emitted at you. What you're really concerned about, I mean, that is a problem if there's like a giant, elephant's foot like in Chernobyl. But what you're really, or the reactor in Fukushima, what you're really concerned about is alpha and beta particles. Small radioactive particles that are emitting these waves that get on you and start damaging you. So take off all your clothes, rinse off in the shower, bag the clothes, tie it up, clean everything, and stay safe. I will tell you this, though, my friends. If you are in New York City, and they do use a Sarmat nuclear bomb. Sorry, that doesn't matter. You're dead. So it looks like, is the map not going to load here? Oh, come on. What are you doing? Why aren't you loading? Oh, well. Maybe I can go back to Washington, D.C. Let's try Washington, D.C. again. I think that was loaded. No? What? There we go. There we go. We'll show you Washington, D.C., and I'll explain to you why you're doomed. This is Nuke map. For those that are listening, I'll explain. I have selected on Nuke map, you can select the yield of a bomb. I have chosen the Tsar Bomba, the largest USSR bomb, 50 megatons. And if that bomb were to hit Washington, Annapolis is vaporized, Baltimore is mostly vaporized. Washington, D.C., Alexandria, Fairfax, Gainesville, La Plata, Indian Head, Triangle, Chesapeake Beach, Lothian, Bowie. It's just Germantown, Columbia, all gone. In fact, those who live up near Frederick, which is like 45 minutes away, you are just outside the real blast radius. But man, I don't know if the yield would be comparable in terms of effect. But this is the range that makes the most sense. Let's do this. Director of Roscosmos, Rogozin posts picture of Sarmat nuclear missile, saying it will be serially produced. This is a story from this morning. So Sarmat, the world's most powerful nuclear missile with a global range, is preparing it for new tests and serial production. This after they threatened to that they could wipe out the eastern seaboard. All right. How deadly is Putin's nuclear Satan II missile? From Live Science. Now, it was dubbed the Satan missile by NATO because we don't like the Russians. It's ominous, but experts say it hasn't changed existing threat levels. Okay, well, the context there is really important. They go to mention it's got massive range, that the Sarmat 2 is capable of carrying up to 15 light nuclear warheads in an array known as a MIRV, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. MIRVs are a missile type first made in the early 1960s and are designed to allow an intercontinental ballistic missile to send multiple warheads to different targets. Oh yeah. Here's the most important part. Comparing silo-based rockets alone, the new Russian rocket looks formidable. It can launch a maximum payload with a yield of roughly 50 megatons of TNT, compared with the U.S. Minuteman III, which carries a maximum payload of 1.425 megatons. What, are you kidding me? Was it 30 to 35 times the power of our U.S. Minuteman III? No. That can't be right. They're going to say the U.S. has conducted 17 different hypersonic missile tests, 10 which have failed. Oof. The last, a test of Lockheed Martin developed hypersonic air-breathing weapon concept, flew sometime in mid-March 2022 and was a success. All right. I am not an expert on hypersonic missiles, nor for the most part nuclear weapons, but I can tell you a little bit. The concern with hypersonic weapons, they are not faster than ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. They fly lower, and they're hard to detect, and they can move and maneuver very, very quickly. So, I don't understand. Let me see if I can reload. I'll show you this. Here's Washington, D.C. Baltimore gets hit in you have the let's start with the beginning. The radiation radius right there in the middle. So if you're in D.C., central D.C. is just swimming in nuclear waste, and it's completely vaporized. The fireball radius extends outwards just south of Silver Spring and reaching into Alexandria. The heavy blast damage radius, it says at 20 PSI overpressure, heavily built concrete buildings are severely damaged or demolished. Fatalities approach 100%. So that's the red right here, reaching near Alexandria. Then you get the gray circle, which engulfs Silver Spring College Park in Alexandria, heavy blast. This says most residential buildings collapse. Injuries are universal. Fatalities are widespread. Then we move into the light blast damage radius, which will hit Annapolis, Baltimore, Germantown, Leesburg. Man, Fairfax is gone. They say glass windows can be expected to break, causing injuries to the surrounding population who come from a window. And then you get the thermal radiation radius. Everyone's inside this. Third-degree burns extend throughout the layers of skin and are often painless because they destroy the pain nerves. Holy. They can cause severe scarring or disablement and can require amputation. 100% probability for third-degree burns at this yield. Annapolis, all of it, third-degree burns. Baltimore, third-degree burns. Urbana, wow. I want to see if we can get New York to load properly. There we go. We got New York here. New York is finally loaded. This is the point I want to make. When they say, get inside, duck and cover, now you can see the context. A 50 megaton bomb will lightly blast not only the entirety of Manhattan, but it'll reach Norwalk and Stamford. All of New York City is in the light blast damage, where glass windows will break and people are injured. But let me just put it this way. The moderate blast damage, which causes most residential buildings to collapse, fatalities being widespread, massive burns and just people dying. That's the entirety of Manhattan. The entirety of Manhattan. In fact, the heavy blast damage radius, which vaporizes everything, yeah, that extends nearly up to Harlem. If you live in New York City and they launch a 50 megaton bomb, Sarmat 2, you're not doing anything. In fact, you probably won't even realize it happened because you won't exist in a matter of seconds. Now, if you're in like outer Queens, I mean, even Queens is getting hit by this, to be honest. But if you're in like Flushing or Garden City or Hempstead or Freeport or East Rockaway, Long Beach, which I think are part of New York City. I mean, the MTA goes out there. You're in the light blast damage radius. Your windows will shatter. Your nerves will be burned off. You have to be as far as Ilsip in Long Island to be outside of the blast radius. In New Jersey, Long Branch, New Brunswick, Newark, Patterson, it's all getting basically vaporized. Plainsboro, I mean, get inside, duck and cover. Okay, dude. I'm pretty sure if you're hit by a Sarmat, all right, but maybe Sarmat's unfair. Maybe what we'll really see is like the Titan II warhead, the highest yield ICBM the U.S. ever deployed at 9 megatons. All right. If that happens, most of you will just get third-degree burns and suffer for a very long time. Yeah. So when they come out and say all that, let me show you the RS-28 Sarmat. Amazing. It is a MIRV, a multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle equipped with super heavy intercontinental ballistic. It is a MIRV-equipped ICBM. Is intended to replace the SS-18 Satan in Russia's arsenal. I believe it made its first test flight on the 20th of April, 2022. This is massively powerful stuff. Now, the RS-28 will be able to carry 10 tons of payload. That's 10 heavy or 15 light MIRVs, capable of 50 megatons. It will have fractional orbital bombardment capability. So first, let me show you this funny little image here of what a MIRV is. The MIRV. It fires up into the air, reaches outer space, and then the ward up top shatters, dropping a bunch of different payloads. You can see at step 6. And these can bombard multiple cities. Now, if the Sarmat 2 can carry 50 megatons, and there's 10 each, that means each could be like a 5 megaton burst. All right. Let's see if we can get something around 5 megaton. Dongfeng in the Nuke map shows us a 5 megaton burst. If they fired Sarmat 2, they could hit 10 cities, presumably, with 5 megaton bombs. Okay, if you're in New York, you vaporized. Sorry, like, the heavy blast damage extends to Harlem. What are you going to do with the moderate blast damage? Most residential buildings will collapse. Get inside. I guess it's better than nothing, but then the building falls on you. Up to Mount Vernon and Yonkers, you will experience third-degree burns, and your nerves are all fried off. So maybe you do want to be inside. Maybe you do want to be in a basement for that blast. But Newark Airport, JFK Airport, LaGuardia Airport, vaporized. Honestly, I think if you're in those airports, though, they're probably very strongly reinforced. You're in the basement. You might survive the worst of the worst, but yikes, man. The question is about radioactive fallout, and that's a different question. And then I want to show you this. The Fractional Orbital Bombardment System. What does this mean? To put it simply, undetectable. Here's how it works. In this image I am showing you, the launch site for an ICBM shows the missile go up into the stratosphere with an apogee of about 1,200 kilometers. It enters the early warning radar very soon. And that means a country like the United States can very easily then set up its kind of like anti-ICBM system. I'm assuming the U.S. probably has something similar to the THAAD or the Iron Dome defense system. These are defense systems. THAAD is deployed in South Korea, I believe in South Korea, and the Iron Dome in Israel. They fire missiles to intercept and blow up the other missiles in the air. But what if they deploy 10 warheads? Then what do you do? Now, here's the bigger question. The Fractional Orbital Bombardment System has an apogee of 150 kilometers in the air. That means it doesn't reach early warning radar until way later, making it very difficult to intercept. Now, the U.S. says, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Perhaps. So let me do this. I love Nuke Map. This is fun. Let's say this is an airburst. what I've been showing you. Airburst is the most effective for widespread damage because a lot of people don't realize this. You don't want the strike to actually hit the city. You want it to blow up over the city so that it expands and the blast will hit as much as possible. But surface, which is also possible for gravity bombs, or it's entirely possible. We can see here. Let me show the radioactive fallout. So this is what radioactive fallout looks like on a surface burst. Let's go to Washington, D.C., detonating a 5 megaton bomb with radioactive fallout. So if Russia were to to fire this, and it was a 5 megaton burst, and it's spread all over the East Coast, it wouldn't really look like this because this is just a single 5 megaton bomb hitting Washington, D.C. But for those that are watching, what you can see is if Washington were hit with a surface strike 5 megaton bomb, the radioactive fallout would be spread through Baltimore, Bel Air, Philadelphia, Trenton, all the way up through New York. Everything from Washington, D.C. up to Massachusetts is getting blanketed with thermal with radiation. I'm sorry. Here it is. Yes. With fallout. So the radioactive spread, we can see 1,000 rads per hour through Baltimore, Bel Air. Philadelphia is in the 10 rads per hour, but surrounding it like Norristown and Westchester is 100 rads per hour. New York is going to be between 10 and 1 rads per hour. You will be blanketed with radioactive fallout. So, how's your morning going? I don't know what to expect, man. The only thing I can really say is where we are at Timcast, we're good. Even in the event that they drop 50 megatons straight on Washington, D.C., we're fine. Here's the real issue. Will they hit Washington, D.C. directly? Or will they go to Mount Weather or something? Because I don't know exactly how you find Mount Weather here on the map. I don't know exactly where it is, but I know it's like west of D.C. and there's Raven Rock and things like that. So then we're probably in trouble. I wonder if I can search for. Let's see if I can search for this Mount Weather. Let's see if it'll show me where it is. Oh, look, it will. Let's Mount Weather. There we go. Uh-oh. Oh, that's bad. Oh, okay. No, we're still good. Although we're not good. Mount Weather is much closer to where we are. So let's say we get hit by let's do an airburst 50 megaton bomb. Yeah, we're done. See, Mount Weather is reportedly the emergency bunker for DC, and if that gets hit, I'm in a really, really bad place. Okay. Well, it is what it is. So there you go. Maybe we'll flee up to Hagerstown and we'll be okay. Well, maybe it's all scaremongering, fear-mongering to get the U.S. to be like, we got to stop Russia before they nuke us. Whatever, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.